second in 3 programs that we're doing this winter with the specific interest in increasing safety awareness and facilitating a conversation about safety on the river. And Lee has graciously agreed to provide our entire program tonight, which is about the preparation for and prevention of incidents. Like, how can we not get into trouble? And that suits us all greatly. So here's our goal as a canoe club. Number 1 is promote river safety. And number 2 is help people improve their paddling skills, which also improves the safety buffer there. And then the preservation of rivers and the paddling community are our other 2 goals. And with that, I want to set Lee loose. He is the owner and operator of Gradient River Essentials, through which he teaches swiftwater rescue. And I believe the program tonight has a lot to do with his swiftwater teachings. Am I right?
You're right. You're there.
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Teresa. I'm going to take it away.
Take it away. I'm stopping this share. And are you able
Awesome.
to share?
Just make sure I can share my screen here in a minute when we
Yeah. All right. I'll work on that while you talk.
Thanks. Hey, welcome everybody. Super fun to be here. Thanks for being here. I am a super passionate whitewater enthusiast at a minimum. I'm older in my kayaking years, and I think about, I was talking to a friend today about, like, I started kayaking when I was 43. I started guiding rafts when I was 21, and it's a different deal. It's a different ball game. And I don't know if there's rafters here too, but you would know the difference if you're a canoeer or a kayaker, that there's a difference in the ball game we play out there. And so I started late in kayaking. I was on the water for years and years as a rafter. I did a lot of R2ing. I did a lot of rowing. And I found myself for a number of years thinking I knew what I was doing. And then I realized, I don't know if it was like luck or some youthful skill, but I figured out there were times I didn't know what I was doing. I had a pretty serious incident I was involved in 2005. It's a long time ago, where a person perished, and it was honestly that moment where, when I was reflecting on the experience as part of the debrief that went on for a while, that I realized I needed to spend more time in my professional and personal, and then now professional skill set and mindset of how to make sure I'm doing my very best out there. So what I share with you tonight is very much kind of like this prevention focus. So in the meantime, I've been an ACA instructor in swiftwater rescue level 4, and a kayak instructor, and just gotten super passionate about teaching kayaking specifically. But I feel like and if many of you have maybe been to the swiftwater rescue that I did last summer, and maybe will again, but the LCCC does a really cool thing where they give back to their group and provide a swiftwater rescue experience specifically for canoers and kayakers that I'm really grateful to be part of, and just to see people really thrive in that environment is really my passion. So that's kind of who I am in that realm. And what I share with you tonight, my hope is that I bring to you some things like anybody can, well, there's 6,500 ACA instructors. A portion of them do swiftwater rescue. The ACA is, in my opinion, a phenomenal organization that really promotes safety and promotes teaching. And so that's where my training came from, along with just personal experience and continuing to dig deeper in my own practice. But the ACA really empowers people to be great teachers. And what I hope to bring to you is not like a cookie cutter ACA presentation. I hope I share with you a few things that you can say, wow, like I didn't know that, or maybe it's something that I've experienced, and just like you may have experiences that prompt you to change your practice, or to be able to really give back to people that are around you, whom you have something special to share with them, because all of our experiences have value. So, and that, I think the final thing I would say in my, intro is that I really come to a teaching place of just humility and always wanting to learn. Every person I teach, I end up learning from at some level. There's something to be had there. So I just get excited about spending time in that environment. So this is the Zoom environment, as we know, not hands-on, not jumping in the river, not grabbing a rope. So this will be a little different than I usually teach, but I'm gonna do my best. So here we go. I'm gonna see if am I able to share my screen, Teresa?
I think so. Yep.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, I might have to pull up. Give me just a moment. Okay. Out of practice. I know your safety series kind of blew up in COVID, didn't it?
Yeah, that's when it
That's all we
began.
had, right? Yeah.
We're like, we're just gonna dream about the river.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can do slideshow here. How's that look, folks? Is that okay, Teresa?
Terrific. Love your
Okay.
logo.
And then I think I got my buddy Lance on. He's gonna jump in a little later. I see him on there, but I have a little trouble seeing him. But so we are gonna start out with that. My daughter did that design. I'm really happy, proud of her. But whoops, apparently when I click the space button, it goes down. So that's my business. I just felt like that was something I needed to do as a passion project and a give back, and I love it, and I'm passionate, and I will see you guys out on the river, either boating or maybe teaching and doing some learning together. So Great River Essentials is definitely a passion of mine. So here's the scope of what I'm going to share with you tonight. And as you can see, it's heavy in the prevention side. And my hope would be is that as you think about what you do when you go out onto the river, that many things that we oftentimes will think about as reactionary, or this is what you do when, that you can bring those into a mind palace that you could have thought about that ahead of time. And I know that we all experience that at some level, where we go, oh, like that hindsight thing, that like, oh, if I just, this is where experience comes in. But my hope is that a presentation like this also kicks into your brain some things that you start to kind of prefront, like you forefront your thinking on what if this happens. So I have my notes. You don't have to look at this much longer. Oh, wasn't supposed to show you that. So I don't know if we want to use chat tonight, but maybe just for a second. That's kind of cheesy, like, oh, put in your chat, but maybe. Yeah, we'll do it. Why not? So don't think about what you just saw, which is my good friend's face, and it says ACA rules, or Swiftwater, rules, or whitewater rules. I
Didn't
want you to
even
think,
see it.
what's up?
Didn't even see it.
Didn't even say it, it was so fast. Okay. I want you to think to yourself, what are rules on the river? And as you start to think about that, I want to preface this by saying, I was the kid, if there was a fence and there was a hole in the fence, and if there was a sign that said, don't look through that hole, I would look through that hole 10 out of 10 times. Okay. So rules were always kind of like difficult for me. I had to know the why. I had to know like this purpose of like, just tell me not to do something. I might actually almost get more excited. So when I was younger and I was doing a lot of climbing and things like that, I dabbled in I think I was actually in search and rescue a little bit, and the rules just like crushed me. I was like, oh, there's too many rules. And why I was so drawn to Swiftwater in general, not just the rescue side, but kayaking and rafting, is that you get to be very creative in your rules. You're like, how it works for you could be different in how it works for somebody else. And I got really excited about that. It might not be you at all. I don't know. Maybe you love rules, but I was just somebody who I felt like I needed to explore boundaries in my own brain and action on what could possibly be. So to me, kayaking or rapid is a very creative process. Rescuing someone is actually a very creative process for me. So as you think about your rules, get ready to put them in the chat. I want to know what your hard, fast rules are in your boating. I want to know what you think about when you go, when I go on the river, there's no way I'm doing this. Or 100% of the time, I'm doing this. And we can see if they line up to the ACA rules, but it'd be kind of fun to see what you have in there. If you don't mind, are you ready? I know it's 7 at night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. But if you are willing to throw that in the chat, I would be honored to see a few of your hard, fast rules. And we'll see if they line up on the ACA. Are you ready? Go for it when you're ready. I see a, okay, see one for sure. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And it's like when I was teaching in middle school in COVID, it was like, thanks, Billy. You're the only one. Nice, 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 nice. Awesome. Well, the ACA has, I would call them, and I agree with every one of them, some hard, fast rules. They are rules that we definitely don't break in our courses, but my hope is that people who are, sorry, I'm getting used to this keyboard, are doing this thing in whitewater, are following these rules, okay? And I'm gonna go through these kind of quick because again, I'm not a rule guy, but boy, I live by these so much. Someone said helmet, thank you. Always wear your PFD helmet, proper clothing. We know that the number one reason people drown is they don't wear a PFD. We know that for a fact. That is year after year, that's something that we see as a commonality, and maybe not so much in the Northwest, but because people respect rivers, I think a little bit more around here. But oh, thanks, Ross. That's good. So no particulars, launching, difficulty flows. Oh, that's a good one. That's probably you, Teresa. You're cheating. You're chiming in. So we have no. We need PFD helmet, proper clothing. Definitely use locking carabiners. This is my buddy Ross here on my screen. Ross was with me on a rescue. Ross is doing something here I don't teach, which is hang your locking carabiner off your PFD. I was in a course last summer. It wasn't the LCCC, by the way, but a person was hanging their locking carabiner off their PFD. And I said, I bet you I catch you with your locking carabiner open. It was actually in the same position by the end of the course. And they said, yeah, okay. And so not only did I catch them with their carabiner open, they got clipped into a live rope that was about to pull out a victim and they're kind of getting pulled down the rocks on the bank. And I went, gotcha. And that's why we train, right? That's why we do things to learn in a controlled environment in swiftwater rescue. Ross was getting ready, actually, I don't know if you see my cursor, but to clip onto this boat out here. So he was ready to go into action. He was kind of preparing himself with like what he needed. So that's his excuse. He carries his inside of his PFD like I do. So no knots or loops. I put in loops. The ACA just had no knots, but loops are super key in ropes to not be there. If it can happen in a river, it will happen in a river. I'm not like a superstitious person. I'm just more like a data and science person. But I end up like if I tie my, oh, here's a good example. If I tie my shoe and my loops are hanging out like that, I tuck my loops inside of I don't want any loops. I don't want to try and swim out of my boat and have this catch on like the little knob that holds my bulkhead in. There's no way. I'm not risking that. So I don't like any loops anywhere. I'm very cautious. To me, that's prevention. In a really easy way. It kind of makes me giggle when I tuck my little loops in my shoes, but I just don't have to think about it anymore, right? So we don't tie directly into a rope without a quick escape. That's kind of our live bait scenarios and things like that. We don't tie two kayaks together and kayak down a river. I modified this one to make sure it fit. Whoopsies. This part about waiting after assessment, I added, but the ACA says never stand up in moving water, but that's not true. We do stand up and we wade and we can access a victim really quickly in moving water, given if we assess that it is safe and we have a team and we've worked together, okay? So, and then don't swim in water you can't swim out of. Kind of obvious, right? And then always work out of the path of loaded anchors and dampers. And so here is my, I'm going to throw out like little nuggets for you once in a while. But one of them, if you haven't heard this, is the rule of 12. Have you heard the rule of 12? And that is when you don't have 12 strong human beings pulling on something to try, in this case, like pull a kayak or a canoe or a drift boat out of a river, because I've tested how heavy you can pull on a line, and it's more than you think. Usually it's about your weight. If you really have some good footing, you can pull about your weight. If you have between 100 and 200-pound people and you have 12 of them, you're ratcheting up your pounds pretty quickly. Like you're going to get over 2,000 pounds really, really fast. So that's when things start breaking. Prussics start breaking, anchors start breaking. And so those limits are there for a reason. So if you have a 3-to-1, let's do some simple math. How many people can pull on a 3-to-1? Or you should probably start looking at a different angle or a different strategy to your rescue. It's 4 people. That's it. It's not that many. So 4 people on a 3-to-1 is going to load that thing very, very heavy. So I definitely like to go back and think about some of those rules. A couple more people have chimed in. Thank you. So like safety talk before launch, I'm going to cover this, Sue, a little bit more with communication. That's a huge part of prevention. You're spot on there. Thank you. And then I have people getting, oh yeah, laces stuck. Okay. I saw someone, I'm just gonna pull my leg up here. It's kind of weird. You know how like dry suits have the thing where you like Velcro the thing down like that? Sorry, that's probably awkward. A friend of mine who I work with, a personal friend, ran Rainy Falls and flew out of his raft. This got hooked on his oar lock, on his oar, like the catch. So he was under his boat. Luckily, he had a compartment. And he was like, "Why is my leg hanging up?" Well, we didn't take the time to get that loop out of the oar lock when he flew out, and luckily he had airspace, but he was all good to go. Yeah, appreciate those comments. Okay, don't argue with the rules. I didn't make them. I follow them. I love them. I'm gonna stick by them. So let's move on. Let me stop share real quick and pull my share back up. It was sticking on me here. One moment. Let's try that. Okay, we're back. All right. This slide is, I teach this sometimes and I tell stories sometimes almost as a reactionary concept in ACA. The concept is our rescue factors, okay? And I broke this. I didn't like the way ACA like kind of had it in like a really big jumble. So to me, the number one factor is our time, right? So when we think about time on a rescue, we think about airway, we think about the day, we think about temperature and things like that. But when you realize is if you take out heads up or heads down and daylight actually, everything else becomes things that we can talk about and plan ahead for. And so I'm going to teach that in our prevention night this way, okay? So there is like, obviously, if you come up on a rescue and you're thinking about your rescue factors, like time is a massive factor, right? What's happening with our victim? Is the water cold? Is it pressing on their dry suit? Do they have the proper equipment on? How much time do we have in the day? How much time do we have to make a rescue? Are they stable, decreasing, unstable? So we think about all that stuff. And before we get in our boats, I'm starting to like think more and more about what we can do to make sure that we have rescue factors that we can control, okay? And to do that, I'm going to tell you 2 stories. They're a little different, but both of them have like potentially different outcomes based on all these rescue factors, okay? So the first story is this. I was kayaking in near Bend We're actually really close to Bend. It was on they call it the Lava Falls section. And prior to the trip, I'm going to go through our rescue factors here. My team and experience was there were 4 of us. We were all able to do the run. We were capable, I think, to like make it through. Lava Falls is they call it class 5. We were in like late fall, so it was a little lower. It was still class 4, class 5. Our experience was we all had been trained in swiftwater rescue. We knew how to get boats out, how to get people out if possible. So we had experience there. In our equipment kits, we had pin kits. We had a bag, I call it like a body bag, but it's like a keep you warm bag. We had a reach or a go to call SAT if we had to. And then this is a biggie, like right outside of Bend, our location environment where our location was, we were very close to town. We were very close to search and rescue. We were close to friends. I know friends in Bend I could call if I needed a rescue and they needed help pull on something. If it wasn't a person, obviously. But then our environment was a little tricky where the environmental factor was that in pin kits, we don't bring like rock climbing gear, right? We bring slings. We're kind of in the Northwest. We're like ready for trees, things like that. So I had my standard like 20-foot webbing and things like that, and my quick leash, I call it, to sling something. But I didn't have like rock climbing gear there. Okay. Second factor was there were like 6 of us, and we went down Canyon Creek, Oregon, which is a pretty deep canyon. And on that canyon, you can hike out if you have to, but you don't want to. It drops a long ways away from the road, and it's thick in there. And so our team had experience. What equipment do we have? Well, one of the pieces of gear a friend brought was a boat that he bought that was cracked, and he tried to patch it. And if you think really quickly about what scenario that looks like, if you bring a cracked boat and you're not very good at patching a boat, or just a generally cracked boat has prone to problems, you know what can go wrong really quickly, especially this was a low water run. And so the equipment that we had became really important of like what to do if a boat got cracked, okay? Then location, environment, way down in this canyon. Time factor, this was a spring run. Daylight was, we had some, but it would be in there all day, okay? So those are our 2 rescue factors if I think about them ahead of time. If I go back to the run on Lava Falls, we had a person in the group who went into the last drop and did not get information and pinned their boat behind a log with them in the boat. And it was very scary. I saw it happen. The person was able to get out of their boat in a pretty athletic and flexible way out of their boat and get in the river and get to the side. But their boat got pinned behind a log right in the main drop. We had set up safety downstream, so we were ready to respond. But what we realized when we got there is there were no trees anywhere. So when it came to our equipment, we were like, how far are we gonna have to go up on top of the cliff to find a tree to actually pull on this thing? We weren't gonna try to start slinging rocks, we didn't think. And so it took a lot of creativity to get this kayak out. If we all had blown downstream, that's a whole nother story. We're gonna get into that in a minute, but we were there to do the rescue, and we were able to get a leash on the boat and then actually just use muscle to pull that boat out and kind of wiggle it. We didn't have to do a mechanical vantage or a real heavy pull on it, I'd say. But that location, we knew that we were, generally safe just because we were close to town. We had people and search and rescue if we needed it. We didn't want to, of course, but they were there for us if we had that, okay? The second one in Canyon Creek, where the friend brings the boat, it ends up like shattering. The boat just like blows apart on the bottom. And we bring these kits on the river. I bring a lot of Gorilla Tape on the river. And I bring a lot of, I bring fuel, isobutane, for a heat source that can fire something up to be able to heat Gorilla Tape on plastic. It's the only way if you're going to have a chance to like patch something on the river. And so we had the right equipment to be able to get this guy to float off. He was going to have to hike out and then deal with a boat, which you're not going to leave a boat in a canyon. That was a whole nother thing. So we got him out of there. We had a mountain of Gorilla Tape on that thing, and we, burned up all of our of our fuel to get tape on that thing to get him out of there. But he wasn't prepared himself. That's the irony, is like if you talk before and you know who has what gear, and you're having these conversations about who's with us, what experience do we have, what equipment do we have, what's our location, then you're going to be far, far more prepared than if you're not prepared for it. So that's what I think a lot about now. This is really, I honestly, I used to think about this as a responsive thing. Like the responsive attitude would be, okay, here we go. We have a person on a rock out in the middle. How much daylight do we have? Who's on our team, right? Who's here? Oh, it's Jack and Cindy, and they have maybe had Swiftwater Rescue. I don't know. Who has what equipment? But if you're having these conversations ahead of time and you know what's in your kit, you know what people can do, you're saving yourself not only a lot of time on the river, you might make a choice prior to running a river that's going to change the way you even look at the experience in general. So I'm going to keep moving. I could talk about this all night, but our next piece, which I really appreciate, is my screen froze up again. So unfortunately I have to stop share super quick, and I'll share right again. But our next piece is what I call whitewater considerations. And again, from a preventative point of view, a whitewater consideration is, we're going to break this into two parts, is environmental, and then we'll get into the next one, which is more of an interpersonal, okay? But this is the picture of going down the Miracle Mile outside of Eugene. It's our favorite run. It's one we get to know really, really well. And we also like, it's also a serious run. You got to take it serious. But so I'm going to give you a couple of thoughts on what you would do if you came around the corner and you saw this. And you can tell how fresh that wood is in there. That was just in the last storm, the prior storm. This wood was not there, 2 weeks before this photo was taken. That's a massive amount of wood. And as you can see, it's blocking the whole channel. You come around the corner and you catch an eddy, or maybe not. And there's not a lot of eddies on the Miracle Mile. And you see this in front of you. So this is it's not a trick question, but like, if you back up a little bit, what are things you can consider to prevent coming around a corner and having to go, oh no, right? Because if I see this picture right now and I go, oh no, it's like, okay, yeah, I don't have to take you through my whole mind here, but I mean, obviously I'm not going down the middle of it. I'm going to try and get out, and I don't see a lot of eddies happening. So I'm going to leave that in your mind a minute. And I hope what I do in the next slide is start to talk about some things that you can do to prevent environmentally, and how to think through when you get on a river like this. Okay. So giving you a minute to think about it, you might be like, I don't know what the heck, I don't know what I do at all. But here's what we had. So number one is a philosophy that is an ACA philosophy, but the best rescue on a river is the one that never happens. Okay. I don't want to go into this log jam out of control ever. I mean, if I don't have to, and it happens to me sometimes, but if I don't have to, I don't want to. So these are my considerations. Okay. Number one is my river level. Every river has a different character and feel at a different flow. It's one of the most awesome and beautiful things about being on a river in general, is it's a moving thing. It's a live thing. It's happening right before us. It's going up or down. Wood is changing, and the experience on that is definitely life-changing for sure. And it deserves respect, because the difference of 200 CFS on some rivers, or 500 CFS on some rivers, is night and day of your experience of what you're going to have on there. And so understanding a flow on a river at a certain level is paramount to your experience and your safety. Okay. And that includes runs you know and runs you don't know. And runs you don't know, you have to either get really good at reading water, and walking up to it and having that feel of like, okay, there's a lot of water in the banks right now. Or I see a lot of eddies. I see this thing moving slow enough for me to explore. And someone I learned from a few years ago who did a lot of first descents, they said, I always want to be on a low river if I can. I have more time. I don't care if I have to bash a few rocks. I want to experience that low. Okay. Second experience of crew. I don't have to go into that a lot, but you know that the people that you boat with make an enormous difference on how well that day goes and their level of experience. Okay. How you know the run. Obviously this one can get into like down low here, the heuristic traps, maybe of knowing the run so well, you're familiar with it, familiarity. So don't get trapped into that. You know it so well, you don't have to scout. But how well you know the run helps, because if you know there's an eddy here, or there's a rock you can get behind, that adds to your advantage when you see something like this. So obviously your ability to scout and portage. In this case, we saw this from the road up high. We scout as much as we can when we go into this. I'm going to hit my screen real quick. Perfect. So I don't lock up maybe in a couple minutes. But we saw this from up high. So we came into this knowing, because we stopped on the road. We did a short hike. We looked in and we said, okay, we got to deal with that now. But I didn't want to come around a corner, see that in my face. Time is definitely one of your factors we just talked about, right? So how much time do we have to deal with this? How much time do we have to deal with other potential issues on a run, or swimmers, or that type of thing? And then, this is like forward thinking, I know, but like, can you think to yourself, if I do this trip, X trip, what are potential heuristic traps I might fall into? And if you study heuristic traps, which you can on other series here, we've talked about it before, you'll get really good at going, oh, I have potential now to get into like, this trap. And so I'll mention a couple more in a minute. So I saw chat come in, want to be sure. All of them, yes. 100%. 100%. So let me get back to my share. Okay, I'm going to move to our next slide. So this is our environmental stuff. This is all things like we can kind of control environmentally. And then, bless you.
Thank you.
Teresa, sorry, once in a while my screen, when I don't know, pause it, it doesn't want to go forward. So here we go. Now the other side of prevention I'm just sharing tonight is this interpersonal side. My opinion is this is the difficult side. Does anyone remember the quote that says, those who can't teach do? I've never thought that quote was that funny. But those who can do can't teach is my quote sometimes. So think about that for a second. Those who can't teach do, maybe. I think a lot of people have done some great things to become great teachers, but those who do can't teach. And this is so key on sometimes when you get in groups of people who are very skilled, highly skilled with their ability, their skill sets, their paddling, they're not always the best at the interpersonal side of things and take a leadership role in what's happening on the river that day. And the more I boat, and that's been 28 years now or something, the more I still try and develop my own skill sets and try and make sure that the people around me feel comfortable and they know what's going on. Just a few days ago, we got on a pretty crazy situation, and the moment the plan changed from its original plan and people started to get kind of like, okay, here we go. You guys know that feeling, right? Where the plan's kind of like, oh, it's high water, or we're going to do this. And people start to go to the put in, or they get in their boats. You need to say, hey, just stop. Hang on. Just bring it in, circle up. And I said, hey, guys, the plan changed. Is everybody feeling good about the plan? Does anybody have any questions? Is it something that we can move forward on and people feel good about? And do we have the communication that we need to move forward. It's taken me a long time to get to that place where I just really don't care anymore. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it respectfully, um, or not if someone's not listening. But I'm gonna do that role in my life now, and that came from just a lot of training too, and sitting in shows like this. But um, this picture is on one of our favorite local runs. It's the Lake Creek Slides, and I'm gonna move quick because I want to get to Lance here. Lance got some really cool stuff to share. But Lake Creek Slides is out of Eugene. It's been kind of filled with wood the last couple of years, and I'll show you a couple of pictures. We kind of went in to like help the fish, but to mitigate some wood hazards that were, if you're going to run it, you can't obviously run through something like that or that. It was ended up being a little worse than even that picture looks. But so we went in there to run it and to like three of us, the goal was. And when we got there, a friend of mine brought a friend. And when we got to the put in, I realized that that friend was getting in a boat that they'd never been in before. And this is kind of considered like a 5- run. It's, you don't want to be swimming in this thing for sure. Plus with the new wood, I feel like nobody had been down it for a while. And at the put in, my other friend says, "Yeah, I'm just gonna run safety." And I went, "Oh no, oh no." Like he's telling me, sending me a message. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable like being on the river with this new, not new, but newer person. And I went, what do I do? I was like, I'm gonna go. It's a short run. The car's not that far away. This guy's gonna run safety with us. I'm like, I'll just go. But I had that like, when the snowball effect happens, and so we put on the water, and the first thing we had to do was to make a ferry that was a significant ferry above the first drop. It needed to be a ferry that you could make to do the run. And this person peeled out on the ferry and didn't make the ferry and went right into the first rapid. And I went, oh shit. I mean, oh no, here we go. This is gonna be a day. So and it actually was a day. This hazard right here actually is taken in about the second or third rapid. I came down through the rapid and I saw this, and as I saw it, I was running back up to try and stop this person from peeling out and going into the next rapid, this one. Before I could get there, they peeled out and they even missed the line to this whole rapid so badly that they went into some other crap and got pinned in some rocks. And so that ended up being kind of a good thing, actually, in hindsight. And they walked this one, and then we kind of got them down the rest of the run. But really, the point of bringing up a slide or two like this is I had a moment to say, hey, are you going to do this run? Do you feel like you're comfortable with this run? And this was my friend's friend who they brought. I didn't know them. I didn't know if they were good or not. Well, until I saw them do that ferry that was missed. And then here we are, like down in the thick of things. And so I just want to encourage you that walking out is always, always, always an option. It's always better than, getting pinned or getting underwater or getting shoved into a log jam somewhere. So, and I still like, this was a day I kind of share this story in humility. My friend was the one that was like, I don't feel comfortable because of this. And I went anyway. And then by the time I could, it's just one of those things. Snowballs happen really, really quickly. What we did do the rest of the day, though, however, was we scouted each rapid and had safety set up. And we did get down the rapid okay, the rest of the run, excuse me, okay, in this situation. But it took way more time than we wanted to take. So I know that interpersonal one. I know you've all been there. I'd love to hear every one of your stories. You're like, yeah, I should have told, Frank to go home and come back when the water was lower. But it's legit, man. Every time, like it'll get me. So I want to keep moving. You guys are staying up with us. So there's a second part of this healthy assessment. I'm going to show this slide twice. Okay. I'm going to show this slide twice. I'm going to read it if I can. So a couple of things I love to have people think about. Boat and water where it's common for you to be the rescuer, not the rescuee. If not, is your crew competent to rescue you if needed? Can you self-rescue in your craft in the water that you're in? This question sucks, especially as you push into class 4. You're like, Yeah, and three, sometimes threes are big. Like, I don't really want to swim some threes. If not, is there communication with your crew about how? This is the interpersonal piece right here, right? So can you self-rescue? Like, it's a sober conversation with yourself. We like to think we can make it through anything, but if I dump right there, can I rescue myself, my boat, my paddle? If not, hopefully myself. Are there enough skilled boaters in your group to provide adequate safety if you need someone to rescue or evacuate you? Um, that's a again, are there enough people in my group? Are we asking that question? Are we at the put in? I just boated with some new people on like last Saturday, I think, a couple new people. And I asked him, I was like, do you have pin kit? What's your experience? Are we asking that question? Do we know what level of uh of availability they are? What kind of asset are they in the group? So this slide's going to pop up again, so you don't have to memorize it all. So I went down my second year to the Feather Festival, and the Feather Festival was super sweet this year. I felt like when we were on the Lobin and the Tobin, if you haven't been to the Feather, you got to go. There's something for everybody. Granite boulders, not advertising this, but lots of sieves, um, like right there. Just water going under big boulders. That's not why I'm advertising this. It's so fun. It's California. It's gorgeous. It's dam release. The American um, AWA, American Whitewater Association, does great work to get flows down here. The festival's awesome. People are great. Good music and good paddling. And so for a couple days, we just were in heaven, having fun. The things I just told you about whitewater considerations, we had everything under control. We were just going off of these great drops and showing friends down lines and running safety, and felt like it was very much in control. We got to run this run called the Cresta Run. I was with Lance actually, I think on this day, might be in that photo. Some flows were up because of all the water in California last year. And then I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back to this in just a second. And then, does anybody know who this guy is? If you do, just say his name. He's so great. I bet Teresa knows. I met him when he was like 9. No, just kidding. This is Axel from Ben. He's a professional kayaker now, really, and he is phenomenal. He's probably in his 20s. I know he's in his 20s now. I think he showed me down like Meadow Camp the first time. I don't know. But we had heard that this run called Caribou Creek was in. The dam had broke, or they were letting water out, or some weird thing. It was 8 miles up the road, and we had been running what they call some. It's not class. I mean, it wasn't full on class 5. It is some class 5 runs. And someone says, "Oh, this run Caribou Creek is running. It's class 3." It sounds awesome. It's just kind of this like end of the day run, you go run. And I'll show you one more picture here. We put in actually just below this Ravid, which is just ridiculous. You wouldn't run this thing with the tree in there, but the character of the river was really not class 3 at all. Okay. And so I was able to connect my group of 5 or 6 or whatever, who are really good boaters, connected with Axel. He ran it that morning, and I'm going to tell you that there was no heuristic trap happening. Um, Axel's a very good boater, and the first thing he said was like, "It's not class 3." There was no expert halo. There was no like, "Hey, we're hanging out with this paddler who's really good and he's going to make it look really easy and we're going to be awesome because we paddle it with him." It just was, in fact, the exact opposite. And to see someone who's in their young 20s be responsible enough to be a leader and to show other people down a run and say like, "No, this is actually really serious. Do you have a good role? Like, do you feel like you can look out for each other on the run?" And for him to take a leadership role on this day because he'd seen it was really special to like see someone that young. Props to him. No expert halo happening. Our crew, this is part of. I took this picture on the walk-in. We walked in maybe a half mile or a mile, I don't know. But here's what we were seeing, and that's not a great picture, but there's some really. This is one of those deals where the river was more powerful the closer you got, and the river was in the trees the entire time. There were eddy lines that were really serious and boily in here. it was really fun if you were in control and feeling good. But granted, our crew looked at this river as a serious thing to do. We looked at it as a team approach. You really want to stress that. And that team approach led us to talk a lot at the put in about what we were going to do. Okay. So there were six of us. And we do have the buddy system, which we use, like look out for one other person. I use that all the time. I love going on a run with my friend, like, and just saying like, hey, will you look out for me today? I'm looking out for you. And then I'm watching them do lines. They're watching me, whether they're first or second, but we stay close, right? But we felt like the buddy system wasn't even enough on this run. We needed to have all of us together. And when there was a good eddy, we committed to all doing our best to catch it. If somebody missed it, that meant we all peeled out and went with them. And that's really key in this. Like a swimmer could be pretty hazardous in this river. So it was the mindset was we launch at the same time, even if it's inconvenient in blackberries, which I was in actually. And we take off down this river together, and we don't lose sight. If the person in front, which is Axel, loses sight, he peels out as quick as possible, and we stay together. So you guys kind of get the idea. And our group had a really great run. We got to the bottom. I actually saw this kayak wedged in a log jam, and then it came out, and then the first thing we said is the paddler okay? He ended up being okay. But it was we heard that rafts were like floating down the river with no people in them. I mean, it was really like this is it's a really serious place to be in. And it's no different. It doesn't matter what level you're boating. This can happen at any level of boating if you're not talking about what we're going to do if things go wrong, right? So this is where I'm going to go back. Oh, there's a couple things I mentioned. So like, I forgot about this slide. So this is, discussing what to do if somebody swims, individual check-in with each kayaker to make sure they're ready. It's just, are you feeling up to this? Do you feel like you could risk a swim? Is that part of your risk tolerance, right? We don't let anybody go alone, launch at the same time. Okay. I'm going to go back to this slide one more time, and I'm going to introduce Lance to you, I think, who's on with us. Hopefully he can hear his voice here. So Lance was in the group ahead of me that day, and Lance and I are friends, and we did some debriefing and afterwards, and I took these pictures. He gave me his GoPro video after we debriefed what happened here. But and so I guess the first, you can kind of consider these one more time, but the question I want to ask Lance to start with is I explained how my crew got ready for that run together, and he had a crew of a similar size, and for him to share kind of what he went through on that same experience. They hiked the same road we did. So Lance, awesome. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks. Can you hear me right now?
Yep, I can hear
Yes.
you good.
Okay, cool. Sorry, my all my stuff kind of went haywire, so I was a little bit late and had to redo some stuff here. So, but yeah, we're all good then. So the question was kind of how did we set up for that run? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just to think about like what things you put in place to try and make sure that run felt safe for you guys,
Yeah,
or
so
not,
I thought about it
or
a little bit
didn't.
today, and kind of made a couple notes and stuff. And I think one of the things that I thought about first regarding that caribou run was as we went up there, I kind of personally felt like my thermostat on what to expect on that run was based on what somebody else had told me that I didn't really even know. Somebody that I had met on the water that day on the Feather that basically said that you guys got to go check out this like big water class 3 run, right? So I kind of felt like going up there that I was pretty much, my thermostat and stuff was just kind of based on somebody else's opinion of it that was actually going down it on a raft and so forth. And they actually didn't go up as high as we did, and I believe your crew did as well. So I think that was like the first biggest thing was we underestimated it. And I think even though we looked at it from the bridge that you shared, there's a lot to learn there. I think we really uh, um, I think we were underestimating what it looked like from the bridge and from the bank, which I think, we all learn over and over again that from the water, it usually is bigger and more challenging. And I think that a big piece of our group maybe, forgot that important rule a little bit, because we decided to, hike up further and like, let's go up further. Like, it's getting bigger the further we go up. So yeah, we ended up hiking up also. So, when we hiked up, we realized that once we got to the top, there clearly was a dam or something that was broken, like right around the corner, and it was just like ripping across the corner. And we all knew that that was way too much. But we decided that we'd put in right below it because we had seen what we thought the majority of it. So it was so continuous and so high and stuff. We didn't feel like we could really run it all together at the time. And so the group quickly just decided to kind of go into the buddy system and let's just launch 2 at a time. And then we decided that the only eddy we really saw was down at the bridge where most people put in at. And it was kind of like an eddy under the bridge. So like the game plan was to take off in groups of 2 and then meet under the bridge to like regroup and then form a plan. Right. But the biggest part of the run was pretty much that first section, probably, so we basically were running it without a plan. That makes sense.
Gotcha. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen? So this is from Lance. Lance did a really nice GoPro video of this. And I guess what I'm going to ask you to do is, in my opinion, I got to listen to the audio too. And I saw someone Lance, how long have you been kayaking?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah, which is to me, both the interpersonal side and your physical kayaking was really impressive when I saw it. But just that one thing I can tell you is that, and you can go into this a little bit more, but with a couple of the slides that I show you next, we're going to illustrate number one of like, can you swim out of a river that you swim in? Like, can you self-rescue? And one of the things I heard Lance doing in this video was he had this kayaker on the back of his boat for a long ways, hanging on his stern and talking to him and helping him breathe and helping him relax, and something he probably won't share, but it was really eloquent of just being able to read the situation, know that he was, in this case, he was his buddy. But I guess what I ask is like, maybe tell the story almost as we go through the slides and kind of see what you saw and what your mind went through. And I know you remember this spot right here.
Yeah. So basically what we did is we put on in groups of 2. And my friend here that's in front of me, we were the second to the last group of 2. So there was 2 more that were going to put on right behind us. And so we watched groups of 2 pretty much leave out of our whole crew that had like around 8 people, I think. And we knew that they were taking off and they were going to meet us under the bridge, really the only eddy that we saw. And so as they took off in groups of 2 and just swept downstream, you could tell like this water was moving very fast. And so forth. And so me and my friend here, he asked if I would do the buddy system with him. And I said, yeah, let's do it. I was already in my boat, kind of clinched to a rock. And so we both jump on. And he was right in front of me, just a ways behind these photos, around a couple corners. And I remember I started talking to him and I remember saying, hey, let's slow it down a little bit so that we can try and let the 2 behind us catch up. And by the time he turned around and looked at to try and figure out what I was saying, I knew that it was too late, that we weren't stopping anything at that point. Things started firing off and it was a lot of really big seams, a lot of really big waves and holes and stuff. And that was when I knew that we were on something pretty serious. you know? And so I was watching him in front of me, pretty much just like bob and weave through big, you know, waves and holes and stuff. And I started getting a little bit nervous myself, because, you know, there was that continuous nature of it that I pretty much knew that I wasn't going to be able to stop, you know? And so thinking about hazards, and there was a lot of trees and lots of wood and stuff like that, it started kind of like elevating, you know, my thought process around it. And I got to the point within probably like the first, you know, minute or so where it's like I didn't even want to flip in it, because I didn't even want to be out of control for even a few seconds, because I didn't want to end up near any of the wood or the trees or anything like that. So I definitely felt that, and everything. And I was starting to get really concerned of other people that were on our crew. I wasn't sure how the ones ahead of us had fared, and then there was the couple behind me and my friend here, one of which I thought this was going to be pretty challenging for. And so I was looking forward to the eddy under the bridge, you know, and as we rounded the corner, which was the photo before this, I think, I saw the eddy. Yeah, right here. I saw the eddy. I knew where we were going. My friend, you know, was clearly going to catch the eddy too. And as we wound around and I started to catch that eddy water, the first thing I saw was the whole crew was out of the water. They had made the call that we need to take off this, right? So they're on the bank. They're all out of their boats, and I start to catch the eddy, and my friend flips and on an eddy line, and he starts carp and rolls. And so we really have no idea what's around the next corner. I think that was you know, a part that was pretty scary and pretty serious. Not really knowing what hazards might be ahead. We knew that we just put onto something that was quite more stout than we anticipated. So he carped a bunch of rolls, and once he started carping, I pulled back out of the eddy through some brush and stuff, and I just kind of kept my eyes on him. And ultimately, he swam, and I blew some whistles real quick. Thankfully, I think some of the people on the bank, they were able to see it, and then yeah, I just kind of took off after him. And right about here was probably about, you know, 15 or 20 seconds later, where I caught up to him, and it was a trip, because this is what he looked like almost immediately. He was subbing out, and he was looking like he was in real bad shape, like a lot sooner than I thought when I got to him. And you know, it was one of these things where I knew it was just him and I. There wasn't a whole lot I could do about that, but it was just him and I. He was having a really hard time staying above water, and I was having to come to the terms with. He looked like he was getting close to drowning already, and so yeah, we were pretty close to each other. And one thing I did want to note that I've thought about a few times is that when he first started subbing out under the water for long periods of time, and I knew for sure that like every ounce of my being knew how serious it was. You know, like it was the first time where I truly thought, I think my friend's about to drown right here. You know, and as that happened, you know, the moment he came up and he could hear me, I was right there, you know, yelling at him to swim right, swim right, swim right, because I saw an opportunity where he could self-rescue. I think the mistake I made, or maybe something I had to learn, was that right there was when I learned that he couldn't self-rescue. He couldn't swim. He couldn't do that move that I thought, you know, would have been possible for you know, like I'm going, hey man, if I was right there, I'd be beating it towards that little eddy water into that tree or something like that, and that wasn't happening. So from that point, I had to pretty much instruct him to swim the opposite direction, which was back into the main flow, because that's where I was going to be. You know, I was going to end up in that main flow so that he would at least be kind of like near me. And I was finally able to get him on my boat. And he was on my boat for a good chunk of time. We went through a couple decent sized features. And, you know, I tried to communicate with him, you know, to hang on. You know, at one point in time, we tried to avoid this strainer right here. And I told him, you know, as I was trying to fight my way around it, you know, I told him to swim, to kick, you know, we got to go. And, you know, with a kind of very monotone voice, he just said, I can't, you know. And it was when I started to feel as if he was kind of giving up, you know. And it felt like he may let go of my boat at any given moment, honestly. You know, it was just this fear that he was starting to kind of like check out quite a bit. And so he let go for a moment, and I swung my boat around so that I could avoid this strainer. And he went underneath it and came out the bottom there. And I immediately got him back on the boat. And all he kept saying was, you know, help me. I can't swim, can't let go, get me out of here, stuff like that. And then, you know, a little while after this, I pretty much knew there was like no option but to try and like, you know, beeline him into some brush or something, because I was really afraid that he would just let go of my boat. And I, you know, like he shared with me afterwards, even like a couple weeks later, you know, he did feel that he was probably, you know, one more wave or one more splash in the face from, you know, probably, you know, drowning. So ended up getting him into the brush where you grab a hold of some stuff. And then I actually tried to get out too, but it was just like, you know, even though the water visually looked like the big rapids for a moment weren't really very big, the water was moving so fast, even myself trying to kind of like eddy out in kind of some brush stuff, I got denied several times. I went back out on the main flow and just ran some other rapids by myself until I found something that was adequate for me to actually eddy out of, you know. So yeah, that's about that.
Yeah. Lance, thank you for sharing that. I know, you know, he's a friend of both of ours, good friend, and you know, you just don't want to see anyone, let alone a friend in your crew, have that happen. And that's why we have conversations like this. That's why he's willing to share a couple pictures too. And if we go back briefly, sorry, my screen likes to kind of freeze up here. But
I just want to say, Lance, you saved his life.
Yeah, you could have saved his life.
You did. You did something heroic there.
Yeah, and that's not why you're on here. We know that Lance is awesome, but yes, you're right. It
No,
is.
this
That's
is
like
serious. It
yeah,
hits in the heart and the gut.
for sure, 100%. And I know like one of the easiest things ever to do in like a rescue or anything else is to go back and play quarterback, and we're not doing that for the sake of like trying to be right. We're trying to learn what things, you know, what things happen. And so when we think about when we're sitting there at the bank, and I just want to go back to this one more time, which is, you know, are you more likely? I ran this run and I was upside down for a little bit, and I didn't want to be upside down. I got back up, and I was like, God dang it, that wasn't my plan. You know, was I more was I more common, you know, to be the rescuer than the rescuee? Like, I don't know. Like, that's what we have to decide when we get on those things. And um, yeah, that was a run I felt good on, but I also got knocked around a little bit too. Like that happens. And so it is a sober assessment of your skill on what you're about to go do. And then, you know, I didn't want to swim this river, most definitely. And I try and do things in my own personal life to make sure if I swim, I'm gonna have my best shot. For instance, go swimming. I go swim in the pool, or you know, try and stay in shape. Those are things like I try and do because if I do swim, I want to be able to like have that shot. So, and like what happens, you know, if I'm with a crew that is not really paying much attention to me, you know, that's a huge part of this game that we're playing. The more we, doesn't matter again, like even in class 2, your crew matters. You're in class 3, your crew matters very much, on how quickly you're out of the river, your gear, how comfortable you are. And so, and this last one, I think Lanston, maybe I'll ask you just one more question. If you, in hindsight, Lance, if you know, this is no judgment on skill, but I talked to some people in your group. I'm friends with them too. But if you were to go back and go, do we have enough skilled boaters to adequately provide safety, you know, for someone? How would you answer that question?
You cut out a little bit there, but it was, did we have enough skilled boaters to provide safety? Was that the question?
Yeah.
I think that I think our group was 50-50. Um, I think that there were, uh, you know, maybe half of our group that shouldn't have been on that. You know, I mean, I think that yeah, I think that yeah, yeah. I mean, it's challenging because I feel like there were you know, half of the group I feel like was um yeah, we're there to provide, you know, safety and so forth. But my first gut feelings that first, you know, quarter mile was that I thought that as was true, most people were taking off almost immediately because it just felt a little too much for the group we had.
Sure.
So I guess it's a hard question to answer because yeah, like maybe there was, but I don't know that it really proved um, super effective with that run. You know, I mean, I think that somebody being on that run that didn't have the skill set or ability to um, fight pretty hard in a self rescue or something like that, I think it was dangerous. You know.
Yeah,
Can I say something about that?
absolutely.
I mean, just from looking at the photograph, it was high water, right? And high water brings in a whole new set of considerations because you really need a bomber roll. If your roll isn't bomber, probably shouldn't launch just at the very beginning. And then if someone does swim, rescue is far more difficult. And then everybody decided to get out of the water, but nobody stayed in their boats to run safety for you guys. So they screwed up. Sorry. So it's sort of a compounding of many small things. It was the commitment heuristic. You get to the put in and you want to launch because you did all this work to get there. You know, it's the idea that there's safety in numbers. And so there's so many people running this, it must be okay. And there was a lot of heuristics that added up to that scenario that you faced. And it was a life and death moment. And I'm so glad it turned out the way it did. And that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. And all we can do is learn. I really appreciate that, Teresa. We, you know, as boaters, we go out there to have fun, right? And I think there were, you know, that day was a day that people were like, I don't know if that was fun. And it's something that we have to only use it to learn and grow from. And I have massive respect for people that can jump on. And our friend too was like, yeah, share pictures. I want people to learn about it. And it's funny because I boated some hard things with that guy, and he does a good job out there. And it could be anybody with something like that. Everybody has a bad day too, to take into consideration. So, so for the scope of tonight, from a prevention point of view, I'm going to leave it at that. I have more slides, but it's getting late. And really just to wrap things up, I really want to thank you all for investing in yourselves, and you all hopefully have a crew to get to be with. And I really feel like the interpersonal skills that each of us bring to our crew is really what makes the experience so special for all of us and makes it safe. It ultimately makes it safer for all of us. I hope you keep following the rules. You know, I went through went through the rules really quickly on there, but yeah, to me, it's just a constant learning process. I'm never gonna stop learning. I'm never gonna learn from other people's stories. I'm glad Lance came on to tell his story. I don't feel like other people's rescues are mine to tell, so much props to you to come and share that. So yeah, we got a minute for some questions too, if we want to have people chime in. Yeah.
It's like
thanks.
Oren's got a hand up.
Yeah, thanks.
Got a question. After this incident, did you guys debrief to go over what was going on, and how did you do it?
Yeah,
Because
I'll let
I
Lance
think
answer that.
debriefing and even on fun trips is something generally I do, but not everyone does.
That's a great question. Answer that, Lance.
Yeah. So we did debrief a little bit with our crew. The friend that did swim, thankfully, he just asked for some time, like that evening. But he was happy to kind of have like the campfire talk later about it. And so, yeah, we debriefed a little bit that night, kind of around the camp, on what we could have done differently and so forth. And I would say that almost everybody in our crew that night acknowledged that there was a lot to learn on that creek. Like for sure. Like I think it surprised pretty much all of us, and so yeah, we did a pretty proactive job to kind of like go through it and ask ourselves what could have been different and everything. If that answers your question at all.
Yes.
One thing that
Debriefs can be, I just add one thing. Debriefs can be tricky. You know, timing's really key on those, especially if there's an accident or someone is injured or in the worst case killed.
It's also tricky because you don't want to hurt feelings by pointing fingers at people.
Right.
When I do a breakdown, generally I totally avoid pointing any fingers or placing blame on anything, mainly because, well, that's the group I'm with.
Yep. That's part of, again, knowing who you're with too and how they can respond to that. But yeah, timing's so key on when people are ready to. I mentioned to kick off my introduction, I had a serious accident happen. Someone died on my trip, and actually the debrief, the technical debrief that happened with a whole bunch of rafters was, in my opinion, a disaster. Someone came in and started pointing fingers, and I think people went backwards in their own space, and they weren't ready for that yet.
Yeah,
So,
you have to keep pretty firm boundaries when you do something like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise it degenerates quickly.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great question.
Sure, but it also harkens back to the whole Swiss cheese idea that each thing that we do is like a slice of Swiss cheese when there's a few holes in it. And when the mustard leaks out of the sandwich, then you have an incident. So if we can admit where we have holes in our Swiss cheese, if we could admit to mistakes, then that adds up to better learning in the future.
Love it.
Yeah.
Tell that to
One
the
thing I wanted to share, Lee, if I can,
yeah.
Was something I learned from this rescue with him was that, and of course it's easy for me because I had a GoPro on. I can go back, kind of reflect pretty easily from watching it and everything. And it was something that was new to me because in the moment I felt really confident, and it was just like business trying to handle that situation. Afterwards, it seemed like a flood of like emotions. At the time, it was just like all business. Like gonna fight, gonna make this happen. Super strong. And afterwards, I found myself, even till this day, I haven't shared with a lot of people just because it's this thing that it's like new to me, and I'm sure it's probably fairly common, but going back and looking at like, why was it that in the moment I felt so confident and so just like matter of fact, and it's just all business out here, just like I got a job to do. But after the fact, I struggled with it, you know. And if I can answer my own question with that, it would be that like I think I've learned that with my kayaking and my interest in kayaking and stuff like that, I also have a very big interest in rescue scenarios and what would I do? You know, my brain's always thinking on the river, like, what would I do if that just happened? Or, you know, how can I catch this little thing? And what if something happened right there? Like, what would I do? And like, you know, I'm always kind of naturally interested in that. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest benefits of why I didn't really feel very panicked when I was in those shoes is I think I'm not in like a negative way, but like while in the river, I'm always thinking of like what I would do in this situation and just have a genuine interest in how I could assist or what I would do, or maybe some challenging things that might happen. And I think that I would just hope that like a lot of other people can just become more interested in that thought process, you know, so that it, you know, if it ever does happen, you know, their brain might be a little more conditioned to deal with it. You know, it's not like shocking, you know. So just kind of wanted to share that as something that I kind of personally feel like, you know, as I've kind of like replayed it a bunch of times, you know.
For sure. Lance, I you know, I've reached out to you after it happened, and you know, you and I connected on it. And for me, in our this is our community. This is our church. This is the people that, you know, we love and we want to spend time with and see do well. And I got like there was an accident down on the Rogue River last year, and I knew one of the people in the accident. I waited a little while, and then I reached out on Messenger and I said, "Hey, will you tell me your story? Would you like to tell me your story?" And I sat with him on the phone for about an hour and a half and listened to his story. And he said, "No one's asked me about my story." And he said, "You're the first one to really care and ask me about what really happened." I'm also a counselor by right too. Comes easy. I care, but I'm also really curious, and I care about people. So I mean, that's not a big ask for someone just to say like, "Hey, tell me your story. Are you ready to tell me your story?" And I think for him, and in that hour and a half, he said, "You know, I needed that. I needed to go through that again. I hadn't shared that." And so that is one thing we can do for each other if something does happen on the water, and just no fingers pointed, like that great, you know, that great point. It's Owen, you're right on. It's like you can't, we got to just be curious and just say like, tell me your perspective. What'd you learn? So for sure.
Us too.
Any other questions from the gallery here? I know you guys, I can see Dale's mouth moving. No questions. Okay. Well, I just want to say thanks. Thanks, Lee, for coming on and talking about a few principles. The non-negotiables were new to me. I have not seen those before. And thank you, Lance, for telling that story. Painful though, I'm sure it probably still is. But still a success story. And I hope that all of you will take these stories and lessons home with you and mull on them, as Lee suggests, and think about what are your rules. And if you're not a member of the Lower Columbia Canoe Club, you can find us under the .org on the lovely internet. We would love to have you. We do have some programs that are members only, but the safety series is open to the public and free to everyone to come and join because we want you all talking about safety. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Fantastic. Have a good night.
All right. Night, night. Sorry about the late start, Lee.
That's okay.